What do the fourth chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice do? If you once heard that the Supreme Court of Justice has magistrates, but you don't identify their function or know what they do, here we explain it to you. First, we have to know that the highest court that applies the law in El Salvador is called the Supreme Court of Justice. If the Supreme Court of Justice were a building, its main columns would be the Constitutional Chamber, the Civil Chamber, the Criminal Chamber, and the Contention Administrative Chamber. Constitutional Chamber. It is composed of 5 magistrates and makes its decision with 3 votes when it deals with protection and 4 votes when it deals with unconstitutionality. The citizens can go to the chamber to request protection when they consider that the government has disrespected rights such as health, security, or freedom of expression. It is the court that resolves the errors that sometimes have the laws and decrees approved by the Legislative Assembly and corrects the deputies based on the Constitution of the Republic. The Constitutional Chamber also resolves conflict between the legislative and executive powers for the approval of any law and is also responsible for reviewing the situation of persons requesting freedom when they have been arrested without justification. This type of process is known as habeas corpus. A recent example of the rulings issued by this chamber are the declaration of unconstitutionality of the executive and legislative decrees to contain the pandemic by COVID-19. The Constitutional Chamber determined in 2020 that many of the decisions taken during the quarantine were errors because they violate the Constitution. Criminal Chamber. It has 3 magistrates specialized in law that punish those who commit crimes. It is the court that reviews the decision of all the courts in the country. If a person is convicted of a crime, the case can be reviewed by a criminal chamber and then to the criminal chamber that has the last word in appeals and can overturn conviction. A recent example of the decision of this chamber is the resolution that freed the intellectual author of the massacre of the Jesuit priests from criminal proceedings. A court had agreed to prosecute them, but after review, the criminal chamber ordered to end the case. Contention Administrative Chamber. 4 magistrates conform this chamber. The Administrative Contention Chamber reviews the legality of the acts of the public administration, and citizens may appeal to this chamber when they consider that an institution committed an arbitrary act in the administrative process. A recent example of this case is the judgment that declared illegal the dismissal made by the government in June 2019 of 2 employees of the sanctioning court of the consumer advocate. The court ordered that for having dismissed them in violation of the law, they should be granted all the salaries and benefits not received since their removal. The Civil Chamber. It is made up of 3 magistrates who hear family matters, inheritance, collection, and cases of illicit enrichment. The Civil Chamber is responsible for confirming or annulling sentences of commercial, labor, and family courts. The Civil Chamber also grants permission for a judgment pronounced by a foreign court to be enforced in the country. An example of what this chamber can do is the confirmation of the conviction for illicit enrichment of Elmer Charlie, former private secretary of former President Antonio Saca in 2020, The court held an appeal hearing and, after reviewing the sentence imposed on Charlie, concluded that he must repay $15.7 million to the state.